What happens when a son, desperate to prove himself to his father, goes undercover as a janitor in his dad's company? What he discovers next is not just shocking. It changes everything. This is the story of Adam Sullivan, a man who risked everything to uncover the truth, and in doing so, found himself. Adam Sullivan stood in front of the mirror, staring at a version of himself he barely recognized. The designer suits, the polished shoes, the perfectly styled hair, all of it was gone. In its place was a man in a janitor's uniform, a baseball cap pulled low over his eyes, and a faint stubble on his face. He looked like someone who had been forgotten by the world. And maybe in a way he had. For years, Adam had tried to prove himself to his father, Robert Sullivan, the founder and CEO of Sullivan Enterprises, a multi-billion-dollar tech company. But no matter what Adam did, it was never enough. He had graduated from business school with honors, worked on countless projects, and even proposed innovative ideas for the company. Yet, his father always kept him at arm's length. "You're not ready," Robert would say, his voice cold and distant. "Business isn't just about degrees. It's about understanding people, recognizing threats, building trust. You need more life experience." Those words haunted Adam. He was 30 years old. How much more experience did he need? His father had started the company at 22, with nothing but ambition and a dream. Adam, on the other hand, had grown up with everything: private schools, luxury cars, a trust fund. But none of it mattered. In his father's eyes, he was just a privileged heir, unworthy of the Sullivan name. That's why Adam had come up with a plan. If his father wouldn't let him into the front door, he'd enter through the back. Literally. Sullivan Enterprises had just contracted with a new janitorial service, and thanks to some creative hacking and a well-placed bribe, Adam Sullivan had disappeared. In his place was Jake Dawson, a new janitor with no past and no future. Adam grabbed his fake ID and headed out the door of his modest rental apartment. 3 months, he whispered to himself. 3 months to learn everything about the company from the ground up, then he'll have to take me seriously. 2 weeks into his undercover mission, Adam was already regretting his decision. His hands were callous from mopping floors, his back ached from emptying endless trash cans, and the chemical smell of cleaning products seemed permanently embedded in his nostrils. But worse than the physical discomfort was what he was hearing. "Another department cut," whispered Gloria, one of the senior janitors, as they worked the executive floor after hours. "Third one this quarter. Makes no sense. The company's stock is at an all-time high." "It's Carson," replied Jorge, another janitor. "He's got the old man wrapped around his finger." Adam's ears perked up at the mention of Victor Carson, his father's CFO and right-hand man for the past 5 years. "What do you mean?" Adam asked, trying to sound casual. Gloria looked around nervously. "Carson's been making all these changes, cost-cutting measures, he calls them. But people who've been loyal to Mr. Sullivan for decades are getting pushed out." Jorge nodded. "And our annual bonuses? Gone. Carson says the company can't afford them this year. Meanwhile, he's driving a new Bentley." Adam frowned. Sullivan Enterprises had posted record profits last quarter. There was no reason for cutbacks or missing bonuses. Something wasn't right. The next day, Adam was assigned to clean the main conference room after the quarterly board meeting. As he pushed his cart in, he found the room still occupied by Carson and James Peterson, a newer board member. "Jake," Carson said sharply, noticing him. "Come back later." Adam ducked his head submissively. "Sorry, sir. They told me to clean now." Carson sighed irritably. "Fine. Just be quick and quiet." Adam kept his head down as he emptied trash cans, but his ears were wide open. "The projection numbers concern me, Victor," Peterson was saying. "These forecasts seem optimistic." Carson's laugh was smooth as silk. James, this is how Robert operates. Bold moves that seem risky but pay off. Trust me, the Sullivan microprocessing acquisition will double our market share. But the price tag is an investment in our future." Carson cut in firmly. "The vote is tomorrow. I need you with us on this." Peterson hesitated. "I'll need to review the numbers again." Carson's voice dropped. "Remember our discussion about your position, James. As chairman of the compensation committee, your support on this would be appreciated. The threat was subtle but unmistakable. After they left, Adam slipped into his father's empty office. He scanned the desk, looking for information about the acquisition. Finding nothing, he moved to his father's computer. It was locked, but Adam knew his father's password patterns. After 3 attempts, he was in. 15 minutes of searching revealed the truth. Sullivan Microprocessing was a nearly bankrupt company, without updated technology and massive debt. Acquiring it made absolutely no business sense. Yet, Carson was pushing for it aggressively. 2 days later, Adam was emptying Carson's trash when he noticed shredded documents with his father's signature. On impulse, he pocketed some of the shredded remains. That night, Adam painstakingly pieced together fragments. What emerged was shocking. Financial reports that were drastically different from the ones presented to the board. The real numbers showed Sullivan Enterprises was being systematically drained through questionable transactions, all approved based on Carson's recommendations. The Sullivan Microprocessing acquisition wasn't about market share. It was about creating a massive cash flow that could be diverted elsewhere. Adam paced his small apartment, torn between his original mission and this new threat. His father might be stubborn, but he was no fool. Why would he trust Carson so completely? The answer hit him. His mother's death, 5 years ago. Robert had withdrawn after losing his wife, delegating more responsibility to Carson. Carson had stepped in right when Robert was most vulnerable. Adam's phone buzzed with a text from Gloria. Executive meeting tomorrow. Need extra hands cleaning up after. Adam texted back immediately. Count me in. Now, he had a new mission, one with much higher stakes. I'm coming, Dad, he whispered, whether you want my help or not. The executive meeting ran late into the evening. Adam waited patiently in the hallway with his cleaning cart, watching board members file out one by one. Most walked past him without a glance. The invisible service worker, exactly as he planned. His father was the last to leave, looking exhausted as he headed toward the elevator with Carson at his side. Robert, you should head home, Carson said, his hand on Robert's shoulder with casual familiarity. I'll finish reviewing these projections. Thanks, Victor, Robert replied with a tired smile. Don't know what I'd do without you these days. Adam felt a pang, watching his father. He looked older somehow, worn down in a way Adam hadn't noticed before. Once the floor was empty, Adam slipped into the boardroom and began cleaning, carefully examining discarded papers and notes. On a crumpled page, he found handwritten calculations that didn't match any of the figures presented in the meeting's digital slide deck. As he was photographing these with his phone, he heard voices approaching. Adam quickly moved to empty the trash bins as Carson and Lawrence Bennett, the company's legal counsel, entered mid-conversation. Not sustainable, Victor, Bennett was saying. The board is going to ask questions eventually. Let me worry about the board, Carson replied. Half of them are too old to understand technology investments, and the other half are too new to challenge me. As for Robert, he's still delegating the financial details. Adam kept his head down, invisible in his janitor's uniform. Moving $10 million through shell companies might raise flags, Bennett persisted, especially with the upcoming audit. Carson's laugh was chilling. That's why we need you to delay that audit another quarter. By then, we'll have control of enough shares to force a vote of no confidence. Robert's leadership style is outdated. The board knows it, even if they're too loyal to admit it. Adam's heart hammered in his chest. Carson wasn't just embezzling funds. He was orchestrating a full takeover. Bennett lowered his voice. And what about the Sullivan heir? Robert might be distracted, but his son isn't stupid. Carson scoffed. Adam, he's never shown interest in the actual business. Too busy enjoying his trust fund. Besides, Robert keeps him at arm's length. Won't even let him attend board meetings. The men noticed Adam then. Carson frowned. Are you finished here? Almost done, sir, Adam mumbled, averting his eyes. Well, hurry up, Carson snapped before leading Bennett out. Once they left, Adam sank into a chair, his mind racing. He needed proof, undeniable evidence to show his father. For the next week, Adam volunteered for overtime shifts, focusing on the executive floor during late nights. He methodically photographed documents, recorded conversations, and tracked patterns in Carson's activities. The picture becoming clearer was deeply troubling. Through the Sullivan microprocessing acquisition, Carson had created a way to funnel company funds into several offshore accounts. The money was being laundered through fake consulting firms before disappearing entirely. But what was it being used for? The answer came when Adam was cleaning Carson's office and spotted a private investment portfolio left open on the computer screen. Carson had stepped out for a meeting, giving Adam precious minutes to examine the document. What he saw made his blood run cold. Carson was using the stolen funds to quietly purchase Sullivan Enterprises stock through various proxies. He'd already accumulated nearly 15%. Not enough for control, but combined with the board members he'd manipulated, it could tip the balance. Adam was taking photos when he heard footsteps. He barely had time to close the screen and grab his mop before Carson returned with Robert Sullivan beside him. "Just concerned about the direction we're taking," Robert was saying. "Trust me, Robert," Carson replied smoothly. "This restructuring is necessary for long-term growth. The board agrees with me." "The board seems to agree with everything you proposed lately," Robert noted with a hint of suspicion. Carson's smile didn't reach his eyes. "Because they recognize good business strategy when they see it. Your father built this company with intuition, but today's market requires analytics." The subtle dig wasn't lost on Robert, whose expression hardened. "My father understood people. Victor, no algorithm can replace that." Adam continued mopping, inching closer to hear better. "Speaking of people," Carson said, changing tactics, "several board members have expressed concerns about leadership succession. Perhaps it's time to consider bringing Adam into a more significant role." Adam nearly dropped his mop. Coming from Carson, this suggestion was clearly a trap. Robert sighed. "Adam isn't ready. He understands business theory, but not practice. I won't hand him responsibility just because of his last name." "Wise decision," Carson agreed too quickly. "Nepotism never looks good to shareholders." After they left, Adam leaned against the wall, conflicted emotions churning. His father's assessment stung, but he'd also glimpsed something he hadn't expected. Carson was getting bolder, testing his influence over Robert, and Robert wasn't entirely blind to it. The next day, Adam witnessed Carson's most brazen move yet. During an emergency financial committee meeting, Carson presented doctor reports showing serious cash flow problems. The Sullivan microprocessing acquisition has revealed deeper issues than anticipated. Carson announced gravely, "We need to implement austerity measures immediately and consider selling our European division." Adam, cleaning nearby, nearly gasped aloud. The European division was the company's most innovative branch. Selling it would cripple future growth while generating massive liquid capital that Carson could potentially divert. One board member, Diane Shin, raised objections, requesting more detailed analysis. Adam noticed Carson's barely concealed annoyance. Later that evening, Adam overheard Carson on the phone. "We need Shin removed from the financial committee immediately. Replace her with Henderson." "Yes, I have the leverage to make it happen." As the days passed, Adam gathered more evidence. Feeling increasingly desperate, Carson was systematically isolating his father from allies while consolidating power. Board members who questioned Carson suddenly found themselves reassigned or pushed out. Adam needed to move quickly. His father's company, his family's legacy, was being stolen right before his eyes. Adam knew he needed allies. Working as a janitor had taught him that the most overlooked people often had the most valuable insights. But to truly understand the financial labyrinth Carson had created, he needed someone with insider knowledge. His opportunity came during a late shift when he noticed a light still on in one of the accounting department offices. Inside, a young woman with dark-rimmed glasses sat surrounded by spreadsheets, her fingers flying over a calculator. Adam recognized her. Olivia Mercer, a junior accountant who had joined the company just after his father had sidelined him. Adam knocked softly on the doorframe. "Sorry to interrupt. Need to clean in here." Olivia looked up, clearly exhausted. "Oh, don't worry about it. I'll be here a while." She gestured to the mountain of reports. Month-end reconciliation. Nightmare. Adam nodded sympathetically. Burning the midnight oil a lot these days. Ever since the Sullivan microprocessing acquisition, she sighed, rubbing her temples. Nothing adds up anymore. Literally. Adam hesitated, then took a calculated risk. I keep hearing about that deal. Bad investment. Olivia glanced at the door, then lowered her voice. Between us, it's a disaster, but questioning it is apparently career suicide. She eyed him curiously. You're new, right? Jake. Started a few weeks ago, Adam confirmed, leaning on his mop. It's just, I used to work at an accounting firm before. He let his voice trail off, implying a fall from better circumstances. Olivia's expression softened. Life happens. No judgment here. She suddenly seemed to make a decision. Actually, since you have a background, maybe you can see something I'm missing. Over the next week, Adam spent his breaks with Olivia, carefully building trust. She was brilliant but overlooked, passed over for promotion twice despite her exceptional work. Under Carson's leadership, the company's meritocracy had eroded into a system of favorites and yes men. I've found millions that can't be accounted for, Olivia confessed one evening, showing Adam a spreadsheet she'd been working on privately. The official books claim the money went to integration costs for Sullivan microprocessing, but when I requested specific invoices, I was shut down. Carson's office took over the file directly. Why not report it? Adam asked, already knowing the answer. Olivia laughed bitterly. To whom? Finance reports to Carson. HR reports to Carson. The board trusts Carson more than they trust themselves these days. She lowered her voice. Lisa from tax compliance raised concerns last month. She was let go the next week. Corporate restructuring. The next night, Adam made his boldest move yet. Using the master key card he'd copied from the janitorial supervisor, he accessed Carson's office at 2 a.m. when the building security systems reset briefly during their automated backup. He had exactly 7 minutes. Carson's computer required a password, but Adam had been preparing for this moment. He'd observed Carson typing it numerous times while pretending to clean nearby. Kingmaker 2023. The arrogance was almost too perfect. Once inside, Adam navigated quickly to the encrypted folders he'd spotted previously. Carson was organized, methodical in his corruption. Adam inserted a specialized USB drive that bypassed the company's data loss prevention tools and began copying files. What he found confirmed his worst fears. Carson had created an intricate web of fake consulting companies, Alto Innovations, Meridian Solutions, Zenith Technologies, all registered in different countries with elaborate paper trails. Each had received millions from Sullivan Enterprises for services that were never performed. The money then moved through a series of offshore accounts before landing in private investment funds controlled by Carson himself. And the purpose of those funds became clear. They were being used to secretly acquire Sullivan Enterprises stock through various proxies and shell companies. Carson wasn't just stealing money. He was stealing the entire company. A spreadsheet titled Board Strategy revealed Carson's complete plan. He had compiled compromising information on every board member, using it to pressure them into supporting his initiatives. Those who couldn't be controlled were being systematically replaced with his allies. The document included a timeline. In just 4 weeks, Carson planned to call a special board meeting to vote on Robert Sullivan's retirement due to health concerns. With the proxies and board votes Carson had accumulated, he would replace Robert as CEO. Adam's father was about to lose everything he had built, and he didn't even know it. As Adam continued searching, he discovered something even more disturbing. Encrypted communications between Carson and Westlake Capital, Sullivan Enterprises' main competitor. Carson was not planning to run the company himself for long. Once in control, he intended to orchestrate a merger that would earn him hundreds of millions while dismantling much of what made Sullivan Enterprises successful. The security system would reset soon. Adam quickly finished copying the files and prepared to leave when a final document caught his eye, a dossier about himself. Carson had been tracking Adam's movements for months, documenting his frustrated attempts to gain his father's approval. The file assessed Adam as no threat due to his estrangement from company operations and Robert's refusal to involve him. A bitter laugh escaped Adam's lips. For once, his father's stubbornness had worked in his favor. The next day, Adam approached Olivia with carefully selected evidence from his findings. He needed her expertise to decrypt some of the more complex financial trails. "Where did you get this?" she gasped, looking at the documents. "Better you don't know," Adam replied. "The question is, can you help me track exactly where the money went and how much stock Carson controls?" Olivia studied him, clearly weighing her options. "This could cost me my job. Maybe worse." "It already cost someone their company," Adam said gravely. "Someone who built it from nothing." After a long pause, Olivia nodded. "I've been tracking the discrepancies for months. With this information, I can complete the puzzle." She looked up at him with newfound determination. "But, Jake, if we do this, we need irrefutable proof. Carson has powerful friends and a lot to lose. He won't go down without a fight." "I'm counting on it," Adam said quietly. For the first time since starting this mission, he felt a flicker of hope. With Olivia's help, he could finally expose Carson's schemes before it was too late. What had begun as a son's quest to prove himself to his father had become a race to save his father's legacy. And perhaps the one chance to heal the rift between them. Moral lesson: sometimes the greatest battles are fought not for glory, but for truth and integrity. Adam's journey teaches us that true strength lies in standing up for what's right, even when the odds are against you. Family, trust, and honesty are the foundations of any legacy, and no amount of power or wealth can replace them. Before we wrap up, I want to take a moment to thank you for joining us on this emotional journey. Stories like these remind us of the power of kindness, courage, and standing up for what's right. If this story touched your heart, made you think, or inspired you in any way, let us know in the comments below. Tell us where you're watching from. And don't forget to share this story with others. Sometimes, a simple act of sharing can make a huge impact. If you're new here, hit that subscribe button and join our community. We've got more heartfelt stories coming your way. Until next time, remember, kindness changes lives. See you soon.